Hey everybody, welcome to the GMG review. Today we're taking a look at Warhammer 40,000 Boarding Actions, a new compendium book of an alternate gameplay mode for Warhammer 40k to play 500 point games on this sucker right here. Some of you might remember this from last summer. This was a terrain set basically released that was a double board set of the kill team into the dark, Gallo Dark terrain features, and which subsequently sort of became a setting for playing small point Warhammer 40,000 games in like a more constrained area. In fact, I would almost hazard a guess that this was a stab at a 40k version of this, Fire and Jade, a curated version of Warhammer 40k to play small unit point games on. Biggest difference is a lot bigger terrain ask in that this box set is enormous. It is effectively a incursion size game table of 40k and has some very complicated wall sort of like setup things in each of the different missions in this book. So what is this book, you ask? Well, this is a compilation of some stuff that was at launch of 10th edition put up as free indexes and PDFs, and actually that gets referred to right in the introduction of the book. The mustering rules, of course, were already put up on Warhammer Community, as well as some of the actually like boarding teams, which is like the curated list of what's available from each army if you want to play it, or what that boarding team would draw from each codex, because sometimes codexes will have like multiple lists of things you could take. So like, you know, here's this chapter Space Marine boarding list, here's this chapter Space Marine boarding list, here's this Orc clan sort of as a boarding list, and that's why I'm kind of reminded of this right here. It has army construction where the other one doesn't, but because the units get curated down from their core codex into a smaller list of available options to kind of fit the setting, and so you can't take knights and vehicles driving around inside a spaceship, that becomes like a thing. So it was previously available for free, but this book in general is divided into two halves. The first half being the missions and mission structure, because the missions are fairly complicated in this setting, because it requires you to have a setup instructions for how all the walls go together on the actual like board surface, and then it includes all the missions for all of the kill team supplements that introduce new scenery. So for instance, when you go through the mission sets, you first have the asymmetric missions, which is like the core ones, then the Rock Besieged campaign missions, which introduce new scenery features, narrative missions that have even more, breacher operation missions, dark depths missions, and multiplayer missions. And each of these can incorporate some of the additional terrain features like the cat, the like cameras and stuff, all the additional sort of like Galadark stuff that came out kind of in waves throughout the various expansions for this game when it was a kill team release. And they incorporated into the boarding actions rules to let you use that terrain. So I have no idea how that's going to become available to people in the future. So if you already have sets of this terrain out there, you can kind of use this book right away. But if you're trying to collect from this book outward, you may be able to buy this boarding action terrain set still. I would almost imagine you probably can. It was a pretty big ask. But the additional terrain features don't come in there, so you'd have to collect them some other way. And the second half of this book, which is, the whole thing is full color. It's over 288 pages, almost 300 pages. The second half of this book is just every faction's boarding teams from pages 184 on. And what I do think is really funny, though, is there's a reference in the front of this book to you also wanting to keep up to date with the balance data slates, Munitorium field manual, and mustering rules, because basically they just say all of these boarding mustering rules might change. The most up-to-date document will be the PDF on the website. And I have some thoughts about that at the end of it all, but like, I don't think that anyone's ever going to play boarding actions competitively, so why not just make this the definitive version of that? Like, who cares? It doesn't seem like it's super worth doing. But there are a whole bunch of different boarding teams in here. Faction rules wise, the Arbites get a boarding strike, Pylum strike team, and Terminator assault for the Astartes. Sorry, I said Arbites, I meant Astartes. Now, the Custodians get Voyagers in the Darkness and Black Ship Guardians. The Mechanicus get Electro-Martyrs, Response Clave, and Machine Cult. The Sororitas get a Pious Protectors and Penitents Pilgrims. Basically, each of these is like dividing up different unit types and giving it a theme. So like Pious Protectors is the Sisters themselves. The Penitents and Pilgrims are like the Archoflagellants, and the, what is it called? The Sisters with the Chainsaws. You know the ones I'm talking about. Basically, it's like the Freak Brigade or the Girls in Power Armor. And then the Eldari get Kane's Arrow, which is like an Aspect Warrior one. Protector Host, which is more Guardian focused. Wraiths in the Void, Stardancer Mask, which is all Harlequins. Agents of the Imperium get a Void Ship Company and an Interdiction team. Astra Militarum get an Embarked Regiment and a Tempestus Boarding Regiment, which I thought was pretty cool. So one's focused on the Stormtroopers, the other one's just like, we're just guardsmen on a spaceship. I guess we'll do what we can. Death Guard get Victors of Decay, Unclean Uprising, and Arch Contaminators. Drukhari get Space Lane Raiders, Cabalite Corsairs, Ship Killer Cult, and Painbringers. Gene Stealer Cults get the Cult Unveiled and the Gene Spawn Onslaught. Again, like one's more the Cultists, the other one's more the Gene Stealers. Great Devourer gets the Infestation Swarm. The Grey Knights get a Void Purge Force and a Baneslayer Strike. The Heretic Astartes, which is like Power Armor Terminators. The Heretic Astartes get Infernal Reavers, Underdeck Uprising, and Champions of Chaos. So it goes from like Cultists up until Chaos Space Marines. The Leagues of Votann get the Void Salvages or the Hearthfire Strike. The Legions Demonica get one for each of the gods, basically, and then like a total one. So like Demonic Incursion is the 4 powers. You get the Infernal Onslaught, Rotten and Rusted, Dread Carnival, and Pandemonic Inferno. So again, each of the gods. Necrons get Tomb Ship Complement, Deranged Outcasts, or Canoptic Harvesters. So it's like the big machines that take care of everything. The like freak show of all of the whatchamacallit, the flares and stuff like that, who have the flare machine virus. And then the basic sort of like warrior Tomb Ship guys. Orcs get the Ram Ship Raiders and Captain Killers. The Town Bar get the Starfire Cadre and the Recruit Raiding Party. The Thousand Sons get a Chosen Cabal, Devoted Thralls, and Fate Seekers. The Tyranids get Tyranid Attack, Boarding Swarm, and Biotide. And the World Eaters get Boarding Butchers and Skull Swarm, which are, again, Marines versus the Cult guys. So a whole lot of factions to choose from. Each one's broken down into how do you muster them, and then their detachment rule, and then finally their different stratagems. So they get 4 stratagems each. They get 2 enhancements for their characters, or say they get a core enhancement for their character, and they get a like a sort of like a faction overall thing. So like you have kind of like a mini version of a codex for each of these right here, but because each of the codexes gets like 3 that focus on a different selection of models, you got a lot of sort of options in how you're going to play your army. So like for instance, if I looked at the Grey Knights, the Baneslayer Strike, you can have up to 2 of the following. So a Brother Captain Stern, a Chaplain, a Librarian, a Grandmaster, Voldus, or Drago. So up to 2 of those. Clue up to 2 of each of the following units. Brotherhood Terminators, 5 or 10. Paladin Squad, 5 or 10. And that's it. That's all you got. So no big stompy robots. And then ruled adaptations are in here too. So like your Librarian model loses Vortex of Doom. Voldus loses Hammer of Flame. And Kaldor Drago loses 1 with the Warp. And then you get your army rule, the Prognosticators, units with your army with the Teleport Assault ability, replace it with this. Each time you target a unit with this stratagem, roll a d6, adding 1 to the result if it's within range of an objective marker you control, and a 5+ gain a CP. Because you can't teleport anymore, because you're in a boarding action, so you're already there, you're on the spaceship, and you get to be smart at seeing the future instead and get CPs back. You also get Preemptive Strike. In the reinforcement step of your movement phase, you can set up on the battlefield 1 Grey Knights reserve unit from your army using the Deep Strike ability. When you do so, you can set up the unit anywhere in the battlefield that's more than 6 from the horizontally from all enemy units, and until the end of the turn, that unit's not eligible to declare a charge. So basically, you get back a Deep Strike for one of your units in reserve, even though you give up the core Deep Strike ability for everybody to get the Prognosticators. You got to pay for it, though, because you're putting guys in reserve. And then you get 2 different enhancements. Shields of Admonishment for each time a melee attack targets the bearer, struck from the hit roll, or Close and Sanction in your opponent's shooting phase. Each time an enemy unit selected to shoot, after that unit has shot, if the bearer has been hit by 1 or more of those attacks, they can make a dash move. It's a new movement type. Basically, instead of running, you can make a 3-inch dash. To do so, roll a d6. The bear can move a distance equal to the inches in result, but it must finish that move as close as possible, close visible unit. Sorry, dashing kill team is 3 inches. When doing so, it can be moved with an engagement range of enemy units. The bear can only make 1 dash move per turn. And then you get 4 different strats. Armored Aegis, which is basically a Feel No Pain ability of 4+. Cintiq Circle. Select 1 objective marker within 9, invisible to your unit. If the objective marker does not have any enemy models on it, your unit must take a leadership check, subtracting 1 From the result, if that objective marker is secured by your opponent, if it's passed, it's no longer secured, but secured by you instead. You basically stare at an objective and take it, as long as there's nobody standing on it. And then relentless borders in your charge phase. You can charge even if you fall back, or Cybolt ammunition, your AP of your bullets and your stun bolters go by 1. So you can see it's like a mini version of the core codex, and each of them is sort of like this. So you still got some choices. It feels a lot more like building a combat patrol for yourself, which is funny how this almost, this bespoke terrain and stuff like that, kind of making it a weird setting. This feels more like combat patrol than combat patrol does, if I'm being honest, because you make them yourself. And all the armies get a variation of this where you can choose from like a sort of like restricted list of models. And then your missions have a map layout. They have the objectives you're playing for, and typically like a sort of like story driven theme, as well as what squares your models can deploy in for the different like boarding teams, and where they can show up for reinforcements as well. So 300 pages puts together all the stuff that was free already on the website, but adds a bunch to it. So for instance, it adds like if models have come out since that stuff got published, and they're appropriate for faction, like the RBDs or the boarding teams or whatever, they get sort of like slotted in here, or like the Kroot from the Kroot addition to the Tau Codex, they get slotted in here, and it basically brings it up to date. So if you're a big boarding actions fan, which I was, I'll be honest, because it's small unit combat 40k, this is an exciting development. I would love to see this incorporated into Crusade. It can be fun to incorporate into Crusade, and adding the Crusade rules to it. There's not really a reason not to. You could just kind of overlay Crusade and agendas to this, and I think you'd have a fun, like sort of small selection version of 40k. My only thought is it's just a lot of stuff, right? Like you need the board, you need all the terrain. If you have 40k armies already, it's a lot more approachable and easy. But it is more work than something like Spearhead. Like I get the intent was to have like a cool, highly detailed, small unit combat version of 40k. And it is definitely for players like me. It's just on a very high shelf because it requires such specific terrain, and a specific, book and bunch of models and stuff to do it. So while I really appreciate what this is, and I think the core gameplay, once it's on the table, is relatively tight, 10th edition just isn't set up for something like this. And I think you could get a similar outcome to Spearhead, with where it's much more approachable and easy to come to, somewhere in the middle between this and this right here. So I love the effort. I'm glad it still exists, because I think for anybody that invested in the boarding terrain and the stuff that was available over the last like 4 years for playing this small unit combat stuff, I want it to be around still. So I'm glad they did something for 10th edition for it, and they just put it all in one book. Having it all in one place where you just need the core 40k rules, this, and your codexes. So I guess it's not as stripped down as I guess I'm thinking right now at the top of my head, but it's enough that if you just like play one army and your friend plays one army, if you have this stuff, then you can play. Like if you have it already, you can play. And it is available, even if it's on a super high shelf for people. If people want to approach it now, they can, as long as they can acquire the train, get their hands on it, and then have this book right here. So for the boarding stuff itself, you don't require more than this. I will say, having it be a perfect bound book though, if people want to know what this book feels like, it feels like the 3rd edition 40k rulebook. I hope the glue on this binding is good, because it needs to be open, very open. It does have the nice fold out of all the terrain features so that you can see what you're setting up when you're setting up your missions and stuff, which actually the previous couple Kill Team or the final couple, actually I think all of the Kill Team Into the Dark expansions had. I do appreciate that, but this is one of those books that you're going to have it flipped open quite a bit, and it has a ton of information, and it's very heavy, so I'm hoping the binding stays good on it going forward. It does have a thick layer of glue in there, so it should be okay, but yeah, it's not a hardcover. It's a big floppy, perfect bound, instead of being a stitched spine. It's a glue spine, basically is what it is. So there it is. Warhammer 40,000 boarding actions. A lot of this stuff previously came out for Kill Team, in the Galadark series of Kill Team stuff, which was the previous edition to this one, or the previous season, I guess, of Kill Team, to the one we're on right now, which is on the weird Camino planet, the sea planet from Star Wars. And it's kind of a very comprehensive compilation of everything available for that small unit combat skirmish version of 40k. I hope people are still playing it. I personally find it really compelling. for being able to have like just taking your time, painting a few really cool miniatures and having like a good time playing 40K in a small unit way. And I think it blends really well with the rules for Crusade if you want to play some detailed 40K games. This is the story 40K mode, and it has a cool setting for doing that stuff in. But it is, again, it's super tied to the specific terrain that they make, and it requires these layouts. You could make your own spaceship terrain if you wanted to and just say to hell with it and do the layouts as close as possible, but it's obviously designed to like go hand in fist with this. So yeah, there it is. Big thanks for watching. I hope you guys do want to try it out. I hope I can get some people to come in and play some boarding actions with me, because it's all ready to go. I just need to put it on the table and play. So if, yeah, drop me an email if you want to come play some boarding actions and we'll give it a go. Even better if you want to do a crusade and play a couple games in a row. And yeah, thanks to Workshop sending this along as a complimentary copy to review, and you guys for watching. Thanks now, Ash. Happy gaming.